Hey guys, welcome. I'm Liz Wheeler. This is The Liz Wheeler Show. Before we even get into what we're going to talk about on the show today, I want to let you guys know that I'm going on tour with the Young America's Foundation to college campuses all across the country this fall. School is now back in session. College students are on campus. So if you want to bring me to your campus, go to lizwheelershow.com/YAF. It's really easy to apply to bring me to campus. Just go to lizwheelershow.com/YAF. I had such a good time meeting everyone on campus last year talking about, the issues that radical leftists bring up on campus, trying to counter some of that woke indoctrination that you encounter on your campus. So I would love to come and speak with you and your peers and hopefully the leftists on your campus, maybe some faculty members, lizwheelershow.com/YAF. Okay. So what are we going to talk about on the show today? The Department of Justice leaked a photo, leaked it to the mainstream media, of course, of classified documents. These classified documents were strewn on the floor of the 45 office, that's President Trump's office at Mar-a-Lago. It's funny because these documents are supposedly so classified that Trump could be indicted over it. Yet apparently it's okay for this photo of the classified documents to circulate on Twitter so that we all can see it. Simultaneously, the Department of Justice filed a 36-page filing that they claim includes evidence that Trump obstructed justice and concealed these classified documents from the National Archives and the FBI as they were seeking the documents. So what does this mean? Does this filing with evidence that Trump obstructed justice and this photograph that shows you can see it with your own eyes, that Trump had classified documents just strewn in his office on the floor, does this mean that Trump is guilty? We're going to talk about that tonight. We're also going to talk about a New York Times piece that was written by the editorial board calling for Attorney General Merrick Garland to indict Trump. What does this article mean? What was the goal of the New York Times writing this? The goal, the intention, the hope from the New York Times editorial board is very clear if you read between the lines. We're going to talk about that as well. We're also going to talk about Joe Biden threatening conservatives with F-15s, with fighter jets, and what that means. So let's dig in. Okay, guys, so last week I introduced you to a new sponsor of the show called Upside. Upside is a great new app that I love because I'm sure you'll relate to this, from cringing at the pump to getting just an eye-popping check at your favorite restaurant. Inflation is hitting all of us where it hurts, and it really hurts. With every purchase, I'm earning cash back thanks to Upside. It's super easy to use. I like it. I know you'll like it too. It really works. With the cash back that I earn, I can buy Lady Baby just a little something extra, or maybe a little something extra for myself. Here's how it works. To get started, you download the free Upside app. You can use my promo code, which is Liz5, and get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. Next, you claim an offer for whatever you're buying on Upside. You check in at the business, you just pay as usual with credit or debit card, and then you get paid. In comparison to credit card rewards or loyalty programs, you can earn 3 times more cash back with Upside. Upside users are earning more than $1 million every week. That's probably why they have a 4.8 star rating on the App Store. Download the free Upside app and use my promo code LIZ5 to get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. That's $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more if you use my promo code Liz5 on the free Upside app. Go download it now. Okay, so the Department of Justice filed a 36-page document that they claim contains evidence that Trump obstructed justice in the course of this investigation that we were originally told was simply about the National Archives wanting a letter that Barack Obama had left for Trump during that transition of power, and some letters that Kim Jong-un had written for Trump that Trump said were personal letters, and the National Archives said were not personal, they were presidential, and thus fell under the Presidential Records Act, which means that President Trump wasn't allowed to keep them. We were told that this was just a disagreement, bickering, whatever. Well, the Department of Justice in this filing says they have evidence that Trump obstructed justice, that he concealed classified information when investigators were asking about it. At the same time, the Department of Justice, via the mainstream media, because How could they not use the mainstream media? Imagine the audacity if the Department of Justice were to talk directly to us, the people whom they serve. No. They use the mainstream media to leak a photo. The photo, and you can see this on the screen. This is a photo of the carpet of the 45 office at Mar-a-Lago. That's Trump's office. And on the floor, as you can see, are papers strewn all over a banker's box with a Time magazine cover. The papers on the floor, as you can see, are redacted. You can see white splotches over the contents of each document. But what you can see, what's not hidden, is the fact that these cover sheets say secret, top secret, classified information. So the Department of Justice released this photo through the mainstream media. It's gone viral on Twitter, and it's supposed to invoke an emotion. It's supposed to make you feel a certain way. And this is actually what we dealt with during the Trump administration for 4 years of the actual administration, a year prior while he was campaigning, and a year after while they were trying to get him over election integrity claims. So for 6 years, this is the exact MO that the left used. We should be pretty familiar with what they're doing. This is what they do. They hurl some allegation. They pair it with some image that's supposed to make you look at it and say, holy bleep. And that's their entire case that they're making to the public. The case in the court of the public opinion. Don't fall for this. They're actively trying to elicit emotion by showing you those top secret classified information cover sheets. Do not be manipulated. This is the Department of Justice. This is the deep state doing what the deep state does. This is not a case with any evidence that they're showing you. In fact, there are some major problems with that photograph itself that calls into question exactly what the Department of Justice was doing, making this go viral. And we'll get into that in a second. We'll get into that in a few minutes. But the biggest question that we should ask when the Department of Justice files this 36-page document claiming that Trump obstructed justice because he concealed classified information that he wasn't supposed to have and didn't return to the federal government like the federal government claims he was supposed to do, there's really just one pivotal question that we should be asking. That question is, are you disputing the fact that President Trump declassified these documents when he was president and had the authority? He's the ultimate arbiter of classification. Are you disputing that he declassified them? Or are you disputing that he has the authority to do that? Because that's really the pivotal question here. President Trump says he had a standing order that any documents that he took from the White House to Mar-a-Lago, just like every president before him, has had what they call a White House away from the White House. He said he had a standing order to declassify any documents so that he was allowed to take that work home with him. You'll notice that the mainstream media and even the Department of Justice completely ignore this claim from Trump. It's never mentioned in any news article talking about this, and the federal government, the FBI, the Department of Justice, to my knowledge, haven't mentioned this once. So do they have some evidence that President Trump didn't declassify these documents? Or are they disputing that he is the ultimate arbiter of classification as president and had the authority to declassify documents that he wanted to take with him to Mar-a-Lago? There's no way that they could prove this case. Even if they disputed that President Trump did declassify the documents, the president doesn't have to go through a declassification process. He doesn't have to file paperwork. He can just look at a document and say it's declassified. He can share that classified information with anyone. It's his discretion. There's no way to disprove that President Trump declassified those documents. Now, if you want to dispute his authority to do it, that's fine. You're going to lose that case, but there's a specific place that you would challenge a president's authority to declassify information, and that would be through the court system. You wouldn't simply declare that he has no authority to do it and stage a raid on his home because it's your opinion that he has no authority, even though there's Supreme Court precedent saying that the president of the United States, as chief executive, does have the authority to unilaterally declassify classified information without going through a bureaucratic process. This is actually all conservatives should be talking about. Are you disputing that he declassified the documents, or are you disputing that he has the authority to do so? The second question that we have to ask is the federal government, the Biden administration, applying an equal reaction to their claim that President Trump had classified information as they have done in the past to others who had classified information in places that they weren't supposed to have classified information? The answer to this is obviously no. Hillary Clinton had highly classified information, top secret information on her homebrew email server. This is unsecured, which means that foreign hostile nations who obviously wanted to hack the Secretary of State's communication, even with the President of the United States, certainly did so. But the reaction from the left was very different. They didn't care about that. They excused her. They explained it away. They didn't talk about the national security ramifications of this, the risks that this posed to the United States, which hostile nations had information, whether this put human assets of the United States intelligence community at risk. The same with the Obama. When Obama was outgoing, he took 30 million pages of documentation with him, including classified information. And what did the National Archives do? They didn't try to raid his home. They built him a secure storage facility. But where was that documentation while that secure storage facility was being created, was being built? Well, it was in an insecure place. Or they did their best to secure it where Obama had originally taken it. So no, there's not an equal reaction to what they're accusing Trump of doing, even in our very recent history with Hillary Clinton and with Obama. The other part of this is it's not like President Trump just took a hammer and a nail and banged these papers up on the fence outside of Mar-a-Lago for everybody to see. It's not like he was handing out these classified documents with his menu at the golf club outside. Like, what do you think is happening here? Trump is the former president of the United States. Mar-a-Lago, when a president leaves office, they choose one location, one home base that the Secret Service secures, because the Secret Service protects the former president of the United States for the rest of his life, just as seriously as they protect the sitting president of the United States. President Trump picked Mar-a-Lago. The Secret Service has secured Mar-a-Lago. Or did they? Why is this office not a secure location? Did the Secret Service not secure the premises at Mar-a-Lago? Because it's a pretty big breach of our nation's security if the allegation from the Department of Justice is that President Trump held classified information in a premises secured by the Secret Service, but we still think that there was access that could be granted or access that hostile nations could somehow achieve to that documentation, even though the documentation was hard copies and not even online where it could be hacked remotely. The National Archives, didn't the National Archives visit Mar-a-Lago twice in January and in June? Didn't Trump cooperate with them? He did. His lawyers did. He even stopped by for a visit. Did Trump not install the lock on the door of the storage facility as the FBI requested? He did. If these documents were as serious of a national security threat as the FBI claimed, then what took the FBI so long to raid the premises? If they truly thought that these documents were so serious that human lives would be at risk, and the documents were in a place, unsecured in a place where hostile foreign nations or spies for those hostile foreign nations could get their hands and their eyeballs on this information, then why would they wait 18 months after Trump took this from the White House? Merrick Garland reportedly spent weeks debating whether or not to stage this raid. If these documents were as serious as the Department of Justice is now claiming, and if the facility, the storage room or the office that Trump was housing them in was so insecure that it was vulnerable to hostile foreign nations, the operatives from hostile foreign nations to get access to that information, then why would Garland debate for weeks whether or not to stage this raid? Did the FBI plant this evidence? I know a lot of people in response to that question are going to say, oh, come on, Liz, don't be a conspiracy theorist. Listen to what President Trump responded to the photograph that the Department of Justice leaked through the mainstream media of the classified documents that were strewn on his office floor. This is what President Trump responded on Truth Social. He said, terrible the way the FBI, during the raid of Mar-a-Lago, threw documents haphazardly all over the floor, perhaps pretending it was me that did it, and then started taking pictures of them for the public to see. Thought they wanted them kept secret, ? Lucky I declassified. So Trump's denying that he kept classified documents strewn in a messy fashion over the floor of his office at Mar-a-Lago, which is not a hard claim to believe. It's a pretty easy claim to believe. Who would leave documents like this? Why would, what would you possibly be doing with documents strewn like this? The only reason that they would be strewn like that is if the FBI wanted to take a picture of them. So did the FBI plant this evidence? How do we know what's underneath the redactions? We don't know because the redactions are redacted. The FBI is not an institution that deserves trust. They have violated our trust. They have violated our rights. They have violated us innumerable times in the past 5, 6, 7, 10 years, really since their inception, but we can save that rabbit hole for a different day. These are the same swamp creatures who are telling us right now to trust them about this photograph. The same swamp creatures who peddled the Steele dossier. This is the same FBI that lied about Carter Page being a Russian spy when they knew he was not. This is the same deep state and mainstream media supporting the deep state that promoted headline after headline about these alleged P-tapes that President Trump was part of that were false from the beginning. This is the same FBI that won't release 14,000 hours of video footage around January 6th. This is the same FBI that lied about the Hunter Biden laptop story and directed a private entity, Facebook, to censor this story in the lead up to the 2020 election because they knew it was true. They knew it would impact people's decision whether or not to vote for Joe Biden. They wanted Joe Biden to be president, and they silenced this story based on a lie, calling it Russian misinformation when they knew it was true because they had the laptop. These people deserve our trust? Are you kidding? And then we have the photograph of the documents. Can we bring that up on the screen again? I want to look at this photograph. Let's analyze this photograph. This photograph was leaked intentionally. In fact, at the bottom of the picture, you can see Department of Justice via AP. Okay, guys, so we're not even pretending that we're independent journalists now. Now it's just the Department of Justice emailing their favorite outlets. Here's what we want the people to see. We think this will elicit the emotion that we're looking for. Here's how we manipulate the people into hating Trump. This is a propaganda photograph. What we are looking at right now is a propaganda photograph. It's no wonder the FBI, by the way, wanted the surveillance videos turned off at Mar-a-Lago because this is what they were doing. No wonder they wouldn't let Trump's lawyer watch what they were doing. They relegated her to the end of the driveway. Why? Well, you're seeing exactly why. You're seeing exactly why. There's a guy named Matt Beebe on Twitter who had one of the most interesting takes on this photograph of anyone's take that I have seen. This is what he said. He said, where are the declassification markings on the photograph? The original photo would have been classified itself before the redactions. If they, meaning the Department of Justice, really believed that it was classified, they couldn't take photos of it. Under the rules, they, meaning the agents, would have all walked out of there with classified iPhones and cameras just because they took the photo of the classified information. So this is a very interesting thing to discuss. Very interesting. And we're going to talk about it. But first, I want to talk to you about American Hartford Gold. Thank goodness for American Hartford Gold. If you are like me, then you are growing more and more concerned about the future of our country. Inflation is at its highest level in 40 years, despite what Joe Biden tells you. If you want to protect your future, then I suggest that you do what I did. Call the only precious metal dealers that I trust, American Hartford Gold. They can show you how to protect your savings and your retirement accounts by diversifying your portfolio with physical gold and silver. All it takes to get started is a short phone call, and they will have physical gold and silver delivered right to your door or inside your IRA or 401k. And they make it easy. They are the highest rated firm in the country with an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and thousands of satisfied clients. And if you call them right now, they will give you up to $1,500 of free silver on your first order. So don't wait. Call them now. Call 866-781-7499. That's 866-781-7499. Or if you prefer text message, you can text the word Liz to 65532. Again, the phone number is 866-781-7499. Or text LIZ to 65532. So Matt Beebe's theory is one of the most interesting pieces of analysis of this photograph of any that I've seen. So think about this scenario. Let's try to live this with the FBI agents for a second. So the FBI agents have raided Mar-a-Lago. They're in President Trump's office. They have asked President Trump's staff to turn off the surveillance footage, the video cameras. Trump's staff has said no. The Department of Justice, by the way, in response, subpoenaed all that video footage because that prevents President Trump from releasing it publicly to show what the FBI did, which would be very interesting to see. I wonder if there is a way for Trump to release that, but not to go down that tangent for a second. So they've asked President Trump's people to turn off the video cameras. Trump's people said no. The FBI has made Christina Bobb, President Trump's lawyer, wait outside the premises at the bottom of the driveway. Inside the office, the FBI takes these documents out of the banker box, it looks like, or at least, I shouldn't say that actually. That's what they want us to think. That's what the picture is staged to look like. Next to the documents is a banker's box with Time magazine covers framed. They're making it appear that classified documents were in the same banker's box as a Time magazine cover. Were they? I have no idea. We have no idea. So the FBI puts these documents on the floor with the covers to shield the classified information on top. They take this photograph. So let's stop right there. Let's freeze that scene for a second. If an FBI agent had taken a phone and taken a picture of a classified document, then the electronic device used to take that picture would automatically be a classified device. If you take a classified device out of a setting where a classified device is allowed to be, then you are committing a crime. So if the FBI took a picture of classified documents or documents they believed to be classified on an electronic device, that device becomes classified, but the FBI walked out of there with that classified device. So that's wrongdoing. The other option, of course, is that the FBI didn't believe that these were classified documents. They understood, even if they don't verbally and publicly acknowledge, that President Trump declassified the documents. Therefore, that would have allowed them to take a picture on an iPhone, redact the information later on. I mean, you don't redact it when you take the picture, obviously. Anybody who's, maybe you've censored a child's face on a public social media post. Maybe you've censored a license plate when you're taking a picture of your car, or your address when you're taking a picture of your house, whatever it might be. That's not the second that you take the picture, that comes later. But what would have happened is that photograph itself, not the documents in the photograph, but the photograph itself, because it came directly from the Department of Justice, would have had a marking on it that said this photograph has been declassified. Because if the photograph was a replication of classified information, then the photograph becomes classified as well. That photograph has no such declassification mark on it. Look around. Props to Matt Beebe. I have no idea who you are. This was a brilliant piece of analysis, a very interesting question to ask the Department of Justice. If we can see these documents on Twitter, then why couldn't Trump's lawyer? Why did she have to be kicked out? Remember, we were originally told that the visit to Mar-a-Lago by the FBI was about the Presidential Records Act. The National Archives said it was letters from Kim Jong-un and letters from Barack Obama that President Trump wasn't supposed to have. The National Archives was supposed to secure those documents. Do not fall for this, what we are seeing today. What we are seeing is elaborate because this is the MO of the deep state. The deep state releases filings like that 36-page document accusing President Trump of obstruction of justice for concealing classified information. A lot of people don't pay attention to that because it's a 36-page document somewhere on a government website. And so what do? The deep state releases a photograph. Because what elicits emotion more than a photograph? Don't be manipulated. Don't fall for it. It's not what it seems to be. We dealt with this for 4 years of the Trump presidency. The mainstream media, on behalf of the deep state, releasing some bombshell allegation that when you first hear it or you first see it, you go, oh my God. But then 2 seconds later, you're like, well, wait a second. Something seems off. And then an hour later, you're like, yeah, it's not just one thing that's off. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things are off. And then a day later, you're like, no, this is all a lie, and here's why. The deep state is elaborate because this is how they confuse people. But make no mistake about the corruption of the deep state. Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, sent a memo warning whistleblowers within the FBI not to speak to Congress. A fundamental part of the role of Congress is oversight of the FBI. When an employee of the FBI, of federal law enforcement, sees wrongdoing and fears retaliation if he were to report that wrongdoing to his superiors, there's supposed to be avenues that a whistleblower can take to expose that wrongdoing without exposing himself to harm. One of those ways is through the Inspector General of the intelligence community, and the other way is going to Congress. But Merrick Garland is threatening whistleblowers. If that doesn't tell you all you need to know, then I don't know what does. I do know what does, actually. The New York Times, who are the puppets of the deep state, specifically the deep state in the Department of Justice, published an article calling for the indictment of President Trump. And some of what they wrote in this article tells us exactly what they are trying to achieve. I want to read just a little bit of this. But first, I want to talk to you about Incogni. Two things that are really important to me online are safety and my family's privacy. That's why I like Incogni. Thousands of companies are collecting, aggregating, and trading your personal data without you knowing anything about it. It's super creepy, right? The good news is you have the right to request data brokers to delete the information that they have about you and protect your privacy. The bad news is it would take you years to do it manually. The best news is Incogni can do the messy work for you automatically. Incogni helps you protect your privacy and take your personal data off the market by reaching out to data brokers on your behalf, requesting your personal data removal, and dealing with their inevitable objections. Most often, this is maybe the creepiest part, these data brokers hold your name, your email address, your home address, your phone number, even the names of your relatives, your social security number, your employment history, your shopping habits. Let me tell you, you need Incogni. I love it. I know you will too. The first 100 people to use my URL, it's incogni.com/Liz Wheeler, and use my promo code Liz Wheeler, get 20% off Incogni. Protect your privacy today. Go to incogni.com/Liz Wheeler and use code Liz Wheeler to take your personal data off the market. Today's video is proudly sponsored by Incogni. So the New York Times, just when you think the New York Times can't stoop any lower than the article they published the other day that we discussed earlier in the week, arguing that a mother's instinct isn't real, well, they do. They stoop even lower than that. The New York Times published a piece called "Donald Trump is Not Above the Law," and this piece was written by the entire editorial board of the New York Times. This is what they write. Over the course of this summer, this nation has been transfixed by the House Select Committee's hearings on the events of January 6, 2021, and how or whether Donald Trump might face accountability for what happened that day. The Justice Department remained largely silent about its investigations of the former president until this month, when the FBI searched his home in Palm Beach, Florida, in a case related to his handling of classified documents. The spectacle of a former president facing criminal investigation raises profound questions about American democracy, and those questions demand answers. And obviously, when we're looking for answers, the first people we turn to are the New York Times editorial board, right? They write, Mr. Trump's unprecedented assault on the integrity of American democracy requires a criminal investigation. So this is faulty premise number 1 of the New York Times article. And it's very important to identify the false premises on which their entire case that Trump should be imprisoned is built. Mr. Trump's unprecedented assault on the integrity of American democracy. Do you care to give us a couple of examples of this? Are you talking about when President Trump weaponized the power of the federal government to try to unseat a duly elected president in 2016 with lies that were sourced from Russian propaganda, Russian disinformation, and compiled by a foreign spy and purchased by the presidential campaign of the president's opponent? Oh, no. Wait a second. That wasn't President Trump. That was Hillary Clinton. That was Barack Obama. That was the left. Are you talking about when the federal law enforcement of our country, the FBI, targeted parents, calling anyone who didn't want their child exposed to critical race theory or queer theory and transgender indoctrination in the elementary school classroom, called them domestic terrorists? Oh, no, wait. That wasn't President Trump. That's Joe Biden's FBI. Are you talking about when Mark Elias, the Democrats' super lawyer, on behalf of Joe Biden in the lead up to the 2020 election, rigged election laws across the states, changed laws, but not via state legislatures, which is how that's done properly, to institute drop boxes that were unattended 24/7, ballot harvesting, which allowed any person to take anybody else's ballot to a drop box with no chain of custody. Are you talking about the degradation of signature verification on absentee ballots or universal absentee ballots sent to everyone, including people that don't live in the state anymore, dead people? No, that wasn't Trump. That was the Democrat Party. That was Joe Biden. Mr. Trump's unprecedented assault on the integrity of American democracy. It's not Trump that's trying to label conservatives' free speech as violence and label liberals' violence as free speech. It's not Donald Trump that's trying to take away our Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. This is all the left. But this is the New York Times, right? They're so biased that they make a claim like this. They build their entire article on something that's completely false. It's the opposite of what's true. They say the disturbing details of his post-election misfeasance, meticulously assembled by the January 6th committee, LOL, leave little doubt that Mr. Trump sought to subvert the Constitution and overturn the will of the American people. Okay, so even if you believe that Joe Biden legitimately won the 2020 presidential election because he legitimately convinced more voters to vote for him than Trump legitimately convinced to vote for him, what Trump did after the election was not subverting the Constitution. Trump explored legal remedies as prescribed by our Constitution and in our statutory law and Supreme Court precedent on how he could challenge what he viewed to be illegalities in the election that impacted the outcome. Again, this is precisely opposite of subverting the Constitution. This is looking for recourse within the Constitution. That's respect for the Constitution. You can tell a fair-minded opponent, because a fair-minded opponent could look at the election and say, okay, I don't think that there was electioneering. Now, they might be dumb, but fair-minded. But you can tell someone who's not making an argument against Trump in good faith when they argue that Trump was trying to subvert the Constitution, because it's obvious when that happens. That's what happened in Venezuela. That's what Maduro did. He subverted the Constitution by simply dissolving the legislative body and the court system so that they couldn't hold him accountable, so that there were no checks and balances. That's the opposite of what Trump did. He looked to the Constitution. He explored legal theories within the Constitution to see if he could find remedy for wrongdoing that he believed to have happened. But the New York Times, Doesn't talk about that. The president, they say, defeated at the polls in 2020, tried to enlist federal law enforcement authorities, state officials, and administrators of the nation's electoral system in a furious effort to remain in power. When all else failed, he roused an armed mob that stormed the Capitol and threatened lawmakers. Even the January 6th committee, which is a show trial, it's absurd. It's an embarrassment. It's just Liz Cheney making a fool of herself. Even the January 6th committee and Adam Schiff could not prove any connection between Trump and any violence that happened on January 6th. There's no communication between Trump and those that committed violence. There's no encouragement between Trump and those committed violence. There was no coordination between Trump's people and those who committed violence. There was no time that Trump refused to condemn any violence that did happen. He condemned it. And yet the New York Times is building this article on all of these faulty premises. They go on to say the Justice Department is reportedly examining Mr. Trump's conduct, including his role in trying to overturn the election and in taking home classified documents. If Attorney General Merrick Garland and his staff conclude that there is sufficient evidence to establish Mr. Trump's guilt on a serious charge in a court of law, then they must seek an indictment too. The New York Times wants Merrick Garland to indict President Trump. Why? Well, they go on to say, this board, they write, is aware that in deciding how Mr. Trump should be held accountable under the law, it is necessary to consider not just whether criminal prosecution would be warranted, but whether it would be wise. No American president has ever been criminally prosecuted after leaving office. When President Gerald Ford pardoned Richard Nixon, he ensured that Nixon would not be prosecuted for crimes committed during the Watergate scandal. Ford explained this decision with the warning that such a prosecution posed grave risks of rousing ugly passions and worsening political polarization. This warning, the New York Times writes, is just as salient today. Pursuing prosecution of Mr. Trump could further entrench support for him and play into the conspiracy theories he has sought to stoke. It could inflame the bitter partisan divide even to the point of civil unrest. A trial, if it is viewed as illegitimate, could also further undermine confidence in the rule of law, whatever the eventual outcome. It is that paragraph, my friends, where the New York Times exposes why exactly they want President Trump to be indicted. Sure, they want to get rid of Trump. Sure, they hate Trump. Sure, they would like nothing better than to see Trump in prison. But what they would like even more than that is for you and I to have our liberties violated by the left, have the left feel justified in doing so, because the left wants to do that in the name of stifling an insurrection. No matter how hard the left has tried, no matter how many fixing expeditions they have embarked upon, they have not been able to create the insurrection they claim happened on January 6th. The New York Times is aware that if President Trump is unfairly indicted, unfairly convicted, and unfairly imprisoned, there is a higher likelihood of civil unrest in this country. It wouldn't be right, but they're aware of the reality of the thing. And the New York Times wants civil unrest in this country. The New York Times wants a civil war in this country. The New York Times wants violence. They want conservatives to be violent. Why? Because the New York Times and the left have been calling conservatives conspiracy theorists and domestic terrorists and fascists because we dared to dissent from Joe Biden's radical leftist ideology. Because we dare to question the integrity of election that was obviously rife with problems. This is what the New York Times wants. This is what the Department of Justice is playing into. This is what this article is hoping to achieve. To stop Trump and to criminalize us by hoping we commit an insurrection. It's very clear what the radical left thinks of us. Yesterday, we talked about Joe Biden calling us fascist. His press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, doubling down on calling us fascists. But then Joe Biden explained, essentially threatened us, what would happen to us if we dissent.
Right now, you can't go out and buy an automatic weapon. You can't go out and buy a cannon. And for those brave right-wing Americans who say it's all about keeping America's independent and safe, If you want to fight against the country, you need an F-15. You need something a little more than a gun. No, I'm not joking. Think about this. Think about the rationale we use that's used to provide this.
It's insane for a president of the United States to threaten the American people who disagree with him like this. And also, what kind of marketing, advertising, convincing strategy is this? Nothing is going to change the minds of people who disagree with you, Joe, more than being told that they're Nazis and fascists when they're not. Do you have any idea what it feels like to be falsely accused of something so hideous, something so heinous? But that's going to change their mind. That's going to change our minds to be called these hideous names. Biden is telling people that it doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what you feel. It doesn't matter if you've been wronged by the government. It doesn't matter if his policies hurt you. Your individual liberties don't matter. Your opinion doesn't matter. You don't matter. The government will use F-15s to subdue your dissent. That tells you all you need to know about the Department of Justice weaponizing the government to attack Trump, using the mainstream media to circulate false narratives to try to elicit emotion so that we are more easily manipulated. It tells you all you need to know about the New York Times, what they want. Their ultimate goal is exactly what Biden just described. Thank you for watching today. Thank you for listening. I'm Liz Wheeler. This is The Liz Wheeler Show. If you haven't already, give this video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button below, and ring the bell to make sure you never miss a video.